There are moments in life that split everything into two halves, before and after. I didn't know it then, but the night I found that folder was the night I crossed a line I could never uncross. Not because I went looking for something, but because it found me. Let me take you back to where this all started. Marcus and I had been married for 11 years. 11 years. That's not just a number, that's a lifetime of Sunday mornings drinking coffee on the back porch, raising two kids together, building something real. Something I believed in with every part of me. We met in our late 20s at a mutual friend's birthday party in Charlotte, North Carolina. He was funny, steady, the kind of man who remembered small things, your favorite order at a restaurant, the name of your childhood dog, the way you liked your pillow turned cold side up. I didn't fall for him fast. I fell for him slowly, the way you sink into warm water. And when I finally let myself love him, I loved him completely. We weren't perfect, no marriages. We argued about money sometimes, about how much time he spent working, about the way I could shut down emotionally when things got hard. But we always came back to each other. We always found our way, or at least I thought we did. By the time our 11th anniversary rolled around, we had a daughter named Lily who was 9, and a son named Caleb who was 6. We had a house with a yard in a quiet neighborhood where the neighbors waved at you in the morning. Marcus coached Caleb's soccer team on weekends. I worked part-time as a dental hygienist and spent the rest of my time being the kind of mother I always wished I did growing up. From the outside, we looked like the picture you'd put inside a frame at a furniture store. That cleans, that normals. But looking back now, I can see the cracks that I chose not to see. It started maybe 8 or 9 months before everything fell apart. Small things. Things that individually meant nothing, but together they were telling me something I wasn't ready to hear. Marcus started sleeping with his phone face down on the nightstand. He'd never done that before. Before, his phone just lived wherever, on the kitchen counter, plugged in by the couch, left in his jacket pocket. He was never precious about it, but suddenly it was always within reach, always face down, always on silent. I noticed, but I didn't say anything. I told myself he was probably just getting more work emails, maybe dealing with something stressful at the office. He was in regional sales, and his company had been going through a restructuring. I gave him the benefit of the doubt because that's what you do when you trust someone. Then there were the late nights. Marcus had always come home by 6:30, maybe 7 on a bad week. But starting around February, he was coming home at 8, 9, sometimes 9:30, always with an explanation, a client dinner, a quarterly meeting, a team thing, and I believed him every single time because why wouldn't I? He was my husband, the man I built my life with, the man who cried at Lily's school play last December and held my hand through the whole thing. There was one night in March that I still think about. I woke up at 2 in the morning and reached over to his side of the bed and it was empty. I got up, heart already doing something strange in my chest, and I found him standing out on the back porch in the dark, talking on his phone in a low voice. When he saw me open the sliding door, he said, "Let me call you back," and hung up immediately. I asked him who he was talking to. He said it was his buddy Derek, that Derek was going through some stuff with his own marriage and needed someone to talk to. He looked me right in the eyes when he said it. He didn't flinch. He didn't hesitate. I said okay, and I went back to bed. I lay there in the dark staring at the ceiling and I told myself a story. A story about a good man helping a friend through a hard time. A story about a husband who was under a lot of pressure at work. A story about a marriage that was solid, that was real, that was worth believing in. I told myself that story until I almost believed it. Almost, because somewhere underneath all of that, something quiet and cold had started to grow. Not suspicion exactly, more like awareness. The kind you don't want to have. The kind that hides in the back of your mind behind all the normal daily things, school drop-offs and grocery lists and television shows and goodnight kisses and waits. The night everything changed was a Thursday in October. It was raining, one of those hard fall rains where the sky goes completely dark by 5 o'clock and the whole world feels smaller and closer. Marcus had gone out to pick up Caleb from soccer practice while I got dinner started and helped Lily finish a project for school. He came back with Caleb, put his phone on the counter face down, always face down, and went upstairs to change. Lily needed to look up something for her project. Her tablet was dead. My phone was buried somewhere in my purse and I couldn't find it fast enough. Marcus's phone was right there on the counter. I picked it up. That's all I did. I just picked it up. I wasn't snooping. I wasn't suspicious in that moment. I was a tired mom trying to help her daughter with a homework project on a rainy Thursday night. I punched in his passcode, our wedding anniversary, the same code he'd used for years, and I opened the browser. But my thumb slipped. Instead of hitting the browser icon, I hit the Photos app. And the Photos app opened not to his camera roll, but to his albums. And right there at the top of the list was an album I had never seen before. It had no name, just a lock icon beside it. A locked, hidden album. I stood there in my kitchen with the smell of pasta sauce on the stove and the sound of Caleb dropping his cleats by the front door. And I stared at that little lock icon. Every single nerve in my body told me to put the phone down. Put it down, go finish dinner, pretend you didn't see it. Keep your story intact. Keep your life the way it looks from the outside. Keep your husband the man you married in your mind. I didn't put it down. I pressed it. It asked for a separate passcode. A 4-digit code that was different from the one I'd used to unlock the phone. My hands were already shaking. I don't know why I tried what I tried. Maybe some part of me already knew. I typed in Lily's birthday. It opened, and the world I had lived in for 11 years stopped existing. The folder was full of photos and videos. Hundreds of them. Organized, dated, going back almost 2 years. There was a woman, the same woman in almost every single one. Brunette, maybe early 30s, smiling in a way that looked comfortable and easy and familiar. There were photos of them at restaurants I had never been to. Photos of them at what looked like a hotel room. Photos of her alone that she had clearly sent to him. The kind of photos you only send to someone you are intimate with. And there were screenshots. Screenshots of conversations. Long conversations filled with words that my husband had never once said to me. Words like, "I've never felt this way, and I think about you constantly, and I wish things were different." 2 years. 2 years. I don't know how long I stood there. Time stopped working the way it normally does. I was aware of the rain against the window. I was aware of the pasta sauce starting to bubble on the stove. I was aware of Caleb's voice somewhere in the house asking Lily something about a video game. And I was standing in the middle of all of it, holding a phone that had just quietly and completely dismantled my entire life. I put the phone back on the counter, face down, exactly the way I found it. I turned the stove down. I walked to the downstairs bathroom, closed the door, sat down on the edge of the bathtub, and I cried. Not loudly, not the way you cry in movies with gasping and sobbing. I cried the way you cry when you are trying not to make any sound at all. Silent, shaking, the kind of crying that comes up from somewhere so deep inside you that it doesn't even feel like emotion. It feels like something physical breaking. I thought about our wedding day. I thought about the morning Lily was born and the way Marcus held her and wept like a man who had never been so overwhelmed by love in his life. I thought about last Christmas when he made French toast for everyone and burned it, and we all laughed until we couldn't breathe. I thought about all the times he told me he loved me, and I never not once questioned whether he meant it. I sat on that bathtub for maybe 10 minutes. Then I washed my face, dried it with a hand towel, looked at myself in the mirror for a long moment, and I walked back out to finish making dinner. I fed my kids, I helped Caleb with his reading, I tucked them both in, I kissed their foreheads, I told them I loved them. And then I went downstairs where Marcus was watching television, and I sat down beside him on the couch. I didn't say anything for a while. He put his arm around me, normal, easy, like a man with nothing to hide. I let him. I sat there and I let him hold me, and I stared at the television without seeing any of it, and I made the decision I was going to carry through on. I wasn't going to confront him that night, not with the kids in the house, not without thinking clearly, not when I was this raw and broken and shaking on the inside while pretending to be calm on the outside. I needed time. The next 3 days were some of the hardest days of my life. I went through the motions. I made breakfasts. I drove carpool. I went to work and cleaned people's teeth and smiled and made small talk. And every time I came home, every time Marcus kissed me hello, every time he said, "How was your day, babe?" something inside me cracked a little more. I did things I'm not proud of. I went back into his phone 2 more times when he was in the shower. I started paying attention to who he was texting. I noticed a contact saved as Dave W that he texted constantly. No man named Dave. I checked the timestamps on the hidden folder photos against his late nights at work. They matched almost perfectly. On the 3rd day, I called my older sister Renee. She was the only person I told. She drove down from Greensboro that Saturday while Marcus took the kids to his parents' house for the afternoon. We sat at my kitchen table and I showed her everything I had documented, and she held my hands across the table and she didn't say, "Are you sure?" or "Maybe there's an explanation." She just looked at me and said, "I am so sorry. What do you need?" That's when I really fell apart, because I finally had permission to. I cried for a long time that afternoon, and then I stopped, and I got very calm, and I told Renee what I was going to do. That Sunday night, after the kids were in bed, I sat Marcus down at the kitchen table. I put his phone on the table between us. I didn't say anything about what I'd seen, not yet. I just looked at him and I asked him a simple question. I said, "Is there anything you want to tell me?" He looked at the phone and then back at me. Something moved across his face fast, like a shadow. He said no. He said everything was fine. He actually smiled. That easy, comfortable smile I had fallen in love with 20 years ago. So I unlocked the phone, I opened the album, and I turned it to face him. The smile disappeared. What followed was not a dramatic movie-style confession. It was not explosive or cinematic. It was quiet and awful. He put his face in his hands. He said he was sorry before I even asked him a single question. He said it had started 2 years ago. Her name was Jennifer. They worked in the same building. It had started as just talking, and then it became something else. He said he had been trying to end it for months. He said it didn't mean anything. I remember being struck by that last thing. It didn't mean anything. Almost 2 years, hundreds of photos, all those words, and it didn't mean anything. I asked him if he loved her. He didn't answer right away. And in that pause, the last fragile thread of something I'd been holding onto broke completely. I didn't scream. I didn't throw things. I asked him to go stay at his brother's house that night. He begged me to let him stay, to let him explain, to give him a chance to fix it. I told him there was nothing to explain and there was nothing to fix tonight, and I needed him to leave. He left. I sat alone in that house, in the quiet that comes after the kids are asleep and all the lights are low, and I tried to figure out who I was now. Because the woman I had been that morning, the woman who believed in her marriage, who trusted the man sleeping beside her, who thought her life was solid and good and real, that woman was gone. The weeks that followed were brutal. There's no other word for it. Marcus moved into a furnished apartment across town temporarily. We told the kids that Daddy was working on a project that kept him out late, and it was easier for everyone if he stayed close to the office for a while. Lily, who is far too perceptive for 9 years old, looked at me with those big gray eyes and said, "Is everything okay, Mama?" And I said, "We're figuring some things out, sweet girl, but you are loved." That doesn't change. I started seeing a therapist named Dr. Carol, a 60-something woman with reading glasses and an office full of plants who never once told me how I should feel or what I should do. She just helped me understand what I was actually feeling underneath all the noise, which turned out to be not just betrayal and grief, but also something I hadn't expected, relief. A strange, guilty relief that what I had sensed for months was real, that I hadn't been paranoid. That my gut had been right all along, and I had just been too afraid to listen to it. Marcus and I had hard conversations, a lot of them. He ended things with Jennifer, or so he said, and I'll never know for certain whether to believe that. He asked if I would consider couples therapy. He said he was willing to do whatever it took. He cried. He was angry at himself. He was humiliated. He looked, honestly, like a man who had finally come face to face with the worst version of himself. And I didn't know what I wanted. That was the truest and hardest part of all of this. Not the anger, not even the grief, but the not knowing, because I still loved him. 11 years of love doesn't switch off like a light, and I loved the father he was to our children, but I no longer trusted him. And I had learned slowly in those sessions with Dr. Carol that love without trust is not a marriage. It's just a memory you're living inside. 4 months after that Thursday in October, I filed for divorce. It was not a decision I made in rage. It was a decision I made in clarity. A quiet, devastating clarity. Marcus did not fight me on it. I think some part of him understood that this was the consequence of the choices he had made, and the least he could do was not make this harder. We worked out custody together, without lawyers battling each other, because whatever else he had done, Marcus loved those kids and they loved him, and I was not going to use them as weapons. Lily and Caleb spend weekdays with me and weekends with their dad. They are doing better than I feared. Kids are resilient in ways that break your heart and fill it at the same time. It's been almost a year now since that rainy Thursday night. I won't tell you that I'm over it. I'm not sure you ever fully get over something like this. Some mornings I wake up and for about 3 seconds everything is fine, and then I remember, and the remembering still hurts. I still have days where I'm angry in ways I don't know what to do with. I still have moments where I see a couple at a restaurant laughing easily together, and I feel something hollow and sad move through me. But I am also okay, more okay than I thought I would be. I rediscovered things about myself that marriage had slowly buried. I remembered that I used to paint before the kids, before the busy years consumed everything. I bought canvases. I painted badly and joyfully and without anyone watching. I started running in the mornings, just 30 minutes, just me and the quiet neighborhood streets and the sound of my own breathing. I let myself be a person again, not just a wife or a mother, but an actual woman with a life that belonged to her. And the lesson, if there is one in all of this, is not what you'd expect. It's not watch for the red flags. It's not trust your gut, although you should always trust your gut. It's not even about betrayal, not really. The lesson is about truth. We tell ourselves stories, we all do it. We tell ourselves stories about our marriages, our partners, our lives, stories that protect us, that make us feel safe, that let us sleep at night. And sometimes those stories are true, but sometimes we are telling them so fiercely, so desperately, because the truth is something we are not ready to face. The folder was not the worst thing I found that night. The worst thing I found was how long I had known, somewhere quiet and deep inside me, that something was wrong and had chosen to look away. I'm not saying that makes the betrayal my fault. It doesn't. What Marcus did is on him fully and completely. But my silence, my looking away, my willingness to accept explanations without asking hard questions, that was something I had to look at too, honestly and without excusing it. Because we cannot heal from what we refuse to see. The phone is just a phone. The folder is just a folder. What mattered, what will always matter, is what I chose to do after I opened it. I chose not to disappear into it. I chose not to let it make me someone bitter or small or afraid to ever trust again. I chose to grieve fully and then keep living because my children are watching how I do this. Because I am watching how I do this. If you're sitting somewhere right now, holding a feeling you don't know what to name, a quiet wrongness that you keep explaining away, a silence between you and someone you love that grows heavier by the week, I want you to hear this. You already know. Somewhere in you, you already know. The question is whether you love yourself enough to face it. I didn't know back then that I did, but I do now. And that is the one thing I pulled out of the rubble of everything that fell apart. That quiet, hard-won knowledge that I am stronger than the worst thing that ever happened to me. I am still standing, a little changed, a little more careful, a little more honest with myself than I have ever been. But standing.